According to many people, Spider-Man 2 has already made a very big mistake. Now, on the other side of the fence, a lot of people are saying, no, it's not actually a big mistake. Sure, it could have been better, but for the most part, it's not really that big of a deal. What is that mistake? Well, not just the fact that the game isn't exclusive to PlayStation, because a lot of us are already absolutely okay with that, hence of course the first video game, but more so specifically that the game is actually a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and with people still having an issue actually getting a hold of that console itself, it does basically give that, I guess put it this way, it kind of just completely separates the bridge between a player and actually them experiencing Spider-Man 2 simply due to console limitations. Now, this is very much a big debatable topic, and another thing that I want to actually speak about for this game is the whole character switching scenario, because a lot of people have been saying, okay, well, not just people in general, there's actually been sort of rumors per se and so forth where there is that whole segment where apparently you will be able to play as Venom. Now, there was a really cool YouTube video that was actually a concept on how character switching would actually work in this game, from going to Peter Parker to Miles Morales and then Venom, just very seamlessly, which would be absolutely insane. But I don't want to go off topic right now, that's going to be spoken about towards the end of this video, but more so I'm going to talk about these console limitations and how big of a deal that actually really is on the grand scheme of things. Now, the big thing is the sole reason as to why it has to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive is simply due to that ceiling just being set significantly higher in terms of what those limitations are and what they can and can't do, compared to, you know, doing it on a console, or a more accessible console should I say, being the PlayStation 4. We already know that there were limitations, and then the whole argument is, okay, is there any point actually making technically a downsized version of that can equally go onto the PlayStation 4? And the short answer is no, because that would simply just defeat the object. Now, although we still have PlayStation 5 shortages right now, as in when I'm making this video, by the time of course Spider-Man 2 is released, which we are still speculating is very likely to be towards the end of next year and sort of around the April-May time next year. In a nutshell, it's probably going to get a lot hotter than it is right now. That's probably the best way to actually describe that, because right now it's still a mystery. You've got a trailer, you see a few leaks and rumors, etc., but in terms of actually going back and analyzing things like gameplay, etc., we know we don't have that yet. So really it's just a matter of actually waiting for that stuff. Now, the only situation where this could actually make it completely worth it in terms of, okay, I'm somebody, let's just say for example, that didn't have a PlayStation 5 and I really want to play this game, but it's like, okay, well, it's not just paying for the game that's going to be like $60. It's, oh, okay, am I going to go ahead and spend, $500 or potentially $600, by the way, on the PlayStation 5? And the reason why I'm giving that specific price tag is because the price of the console, retail in general, has already been increased, bear in mind, in most countries, and if you live in the US, it's coming to you. Put it that way in a nutshell. It will be hitting your region soon, where there is going to be that significant price increase. And then bear in mind, you have that as retail, and then of course you have the whole element on aftermarket prices, which is going to be a lot higher. So really what I'm trying to say here is you sit down and you say, okay, console limitations, etc, am I going to go spend $600 plus the game, just to play this game? And I guess what it really comes down to is this game is going to be absolutely incredible, and I think it's actually a very good decision that they did make it an exclusive to the PlayStation 5 and didn't do a watered down version solely on the basis that it just wouldn't really be that true game that people were expecting, right? There were video games that have done it in the past, like I think way back in the day, like in 2014, when the first Watch Dogs game released. It was on like PlayStation 3, before they were doing like the PlayStation 4 port version, or I think it was the other way around. It did release on PlayStation 4 and also the last gen version of the console being the PlayStation 3, but basically the difference was just so significant that all the reviews really fluctuated, and it literally was a complete different experience based on those consoles. So the point I'm trying to make here is it makes complete sense as to why this is being done. I don't think it's a bad move. However, what I wanted to actually really go into is the replayability of this game. We already know we're low on superhero video games in general. Marvel's Avengers was our last kind of hope in terms of having a game that had longevity, etc, etc. Unfortunately, a lot of people fell off from that game. Do I still personally play it? As many of you guys who watch my videos know, yes, I still enjoy it, but now it's more or less a game that is there for a selected amount of people, whereas Spider-Man was very much that just open game to everyone, right? If you like Spider-Man and you like an open world game, literally it's just a perfect game. However, when you have things like new game plus mode, etc., and the replayability aspect of it, that's when things start getting a bit interesting, where it's like, okay, how many times can I actually replay this game? So really what we're looking for in the next installment for Spider-Man 2 is that replayability option just to be increased significantly. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, there was a concept gameplay video on multiple characters and how you can play them and switch between them seamlessly. So it was like from Peter Parker to Miles Morales, and then of course Venom. Now bear in mind that's still a rumor, but put it this way, there's been quite a lot of rumors on it that it technically should be more or less confirmed, right? That's all I'm going to say in a nutshell, but I guess we still have to wait for that final word. But with things like that, that really increases the replayability of a game. When you can play it as multiple characters, maybe if there's like things like multiple endings, etc., then it makes it worth it, right? And I really feel like Insomniac Games really having the power that they do as a studio, and us clearly seeing that being done back in 2018 on the first Spider-Man game, it does make me excited to know, okay, that was on a console that had, you know, quite a lot of limitations in comparison to when that console was released and then when that Spider-Man game was released. Also taking into account when the first Spider-Man game actually had the trailer back at E3 where Spider-Man was running through the cafe, etc. Like, things looked different and then obviously had to be watered down on the PlayStation 4 due to limitations. So it's great to know that, okay, these guys are solely working on a new Spider-Man game exclusively to the PlayStation 5 to basically be one of the best Spider-Man games to date. It's got to top the first one, and considering they had limitations there, I mean, they're just going to completely knock it out of the park undoubtedly with this second installment of the game. But like I say, is it really worth it doing that? Overall, the short answer is yes, providing that with these increased capabilities on the PlayStation 5, it actually makes the game more replayable. Maybe there is going to be that whole situation where we're talking about co-op, and again, that's been a rumor. I spoke about that the other day. The reason why I did is, again, that ties into the whole multiple character aspect and multiple endings. But again, I mean, just small additions like that, it really does ramp up things. Now, what you don't want is a live service Spider-Man game, for example, because naturally things would just go south without a doubt. But hopefully you guys see the point that I'm trying to make here. Overall, yes, it's a good thing that it's been a PlayStation 5 exclusive. It is not a big mistake. What would have been a big mistake is if it wasn't a PlayStation 5 and they also released it on the PlayStation 4, because the PlayStation 4 compared to the PlayStation 5 version would be ultimately two separate games, and naturally the PlayStation 4 version wouldn't look terrible, but compared to the PlayStation 5 version, it probably would look terrible, right? So as a standalone, it'd look okay. Compared to the PlayStation 5 version, it'd look terrible. So it's definitely not a big mistake. The sad news of it all overall, of course, is the fact that if you don't have a PlayStation 5 yet or still around by then, and there are those console limitations and shortages, then sure, it's going to make things a bit more difficult because you're not having to pay $60 for a game. You're going to buy the console as well, right? And that could be at retail at an increased price or an aftermarket price. But that's where I say it boils down to how good the game is really going to be. And, you know, I guess it's going to be one of those things where, unfortunately, if players do miss it for a short period of time, that is just what it is. But if this version of the game consistently gets more updates, hopefully, where it's not just a standalone game that gets released and not necessarily forgotten about, but in terms of the lifeline of the game ultimately being less than a year, then, you know, that would kind of suck. So really what I'm looking for and seeking for as a player of the game is that replayability aspect. Things like when it got onto the PC, I mean, look how many people have done mods and so forth, right? They just increased that replayability aspect. So that's the point I'm trying to make. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know. But this game had some very big news the other day as well that did shock a lot of people. Check that out on screen right now.